So in today's video, we are going to be discussing if Baker Mayfield is being disrespected by the Cleveland Browns. Now, before we get into the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and let's jump right into the video. Now, before I preface this video, let me say that I think Baker Mayfield definitely deserves a spot in the NFL. I think he's proven enough that he is definitely a starter in the NFL. I don't think there's any denial when we're saying that. I think Baker Mayfield has definitely earned a spot as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't see Baker Mayfield in a backup role. Some people think that might rehabilitate his career, maybe fix his image a little bit, and that I kind of understand. But if we're talking based off of Baker Mayfield and his skill sets, I think Baker Mayfield is more than capable of being a starter in the NFL. And if we're answering the question if Baker Mayfield is being disrespected, there's kind of two angles that you have to take this question from. Because if we're taking it from the player side, if we're taking it from Baker Mayfield's side, I completely understand why Baker Mayfield may feel like he's disrespected, like he said on the podcast that he went on to. Because if you look at it from Baker's side, he's done a lot for the Cleveland Browns. You look at the organization as a whole, that organization has basically been a mess for its entire existence, and you can argue that Baker Mayfield has made that franchise relevant other than people just talking about how bad they are. Like, people actually are genuinely talking about the Cleveland Browns, whether it's contenders, whether it's about Baker Mayfield. Like, teams are and people are actually talking about Baker Mayfield. It's not just trashing the team because they're bad, and then moving on to the next team. People are genuinely talking about the Cleveland Browns and a team that could be a legitimate threat week in and week out. So Baker Mayfield, I think, is part of that swing that has gone on with the Cleveland Browns. So that's a spot that I completely understand with Baker's side. He's gotten the Cleveland Browns their first playoff win since 1994. Again, it's a franchise that's always a mess, and you come in as the first overall pick. You struggled your first couple of years. Then you get the franchise's first playoff win in years. You deserve some respect on your name a little bit there because you've done a lot for that franchise. And he's helped them compete in a division that they've played second fiddle to for basically years. It's always been the Ravens and the Steelers in that division. Cincinnati now has in the come up, but the Browns have always been kind of the laughing stock of that division year in and year out. So from Baker Mayfield's side, he's made, again, the Browns a relevant team and a team that is competing within its division. So again, more respect that deserves to be put on Baker Mayfield's name, and because of what Baker Mayfield has done, and a little bit of credit to the Bengals on their side of what they've done, the entire AFC North is a relevant division. Every team is relevant now, and you can chalk Baker Mayfield up to making the Browns one of those teams that is relevant to people talking about them in that division. And he's, again, with this franchise being a mess, he's brought stability at the quarterback position for a team that has just constantly been through quarterback after quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. And Baker Mayfield has brought some sort of stability at that position. Again, he's only been starting for 4 years, and he didn't start his rookie season. But again, he's brought stability to that position, which is something that a franchise desperately needs. Because if you don't have stability at the starting quarterback position, you're not really that good of a football team, if you ask me. Like the Colts right now, that feels like they're in an ever-ending cycle. Now, that's a little bit of a different story because they are genuinely, it feels like, a good team year in and year out. They always seem to figure it out and become at least a viable franchise, a viable football team. But for the Browns, a team that never had stability at the franchise position, Baker Mayfield has brought that to that team. And again, I think that aspect of people disrespecting Baker Mayfield, and I kind of, I don't think Baker Mayfield's my cup of tea, but again, Baker Mayfield bringing stability to that franchise is something that is more proof that Baker Mayfield deserves some respect. But that's the player side of it, because then you have to look at the NFL side of it. You have to then look at the business side of it. Teams are always looking to improve, and that's no different than the Browns bringing in Deshaun Watson. Yes, in the NFL, every team, every single year, every single day is looking to get better. And I don't think there's any fan out there that are going to say that Deshaun Watson isn't better than Baker Mayfield. Deshaun Watson is better than Baker Mayfield, and we all know it. And that's why the Browns wanted to upgrade at the position. Maybe the way they went about it is why Baker Mayfield is upset, but Baker Mayfield also has to understand that the NFL is a business. And he also has to understand and know that Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback than him. He's not going to admit that. No player in the world is going to admit that. Every player thinks that they're the best at their position, and as they should. Because if you don't think you're the best at what you do, you shouldn't be doing it. That's just the thing. If you don't think you're the best, why are you doing it? You obviously know that there are people out there that have more talent, more skill than you, but you have to know that I can put in that extra percentage of more work and know that I can get that little bit better every single day. And so again, I know that Baker needs to think that he's the best at his position, but from the business side of it, Deshaun Watson is obviously the better quarterback. And they also think that Deshaun Watson can bring them to the next level, because as we mentioned with Baker, he won them their first playoff game since 1994. But then you bring in Deshaun Watson, they think they can elevate that to the next level, because the Browns now are in a position where just a playoff win isn't going to satisfy them, because they know what this team can do. They know the places that they can take and know how good this team can be. So right now the Browns don't want to be just a team that's just making the playoffs every year. They want to make noise in the playoffs every single time that they go, and they think Deshaun Watson can be that guy that brings that to the Browns. And then the other business side of it has to do with Baker Mayfield's injury. Whether you want to blame the Browns organization, or if you want to blame Baker Mayfield for the fact that he was playing through that injury, that's also a thing that comes in mind for a team. With Baker Mayfield's injury, it hindered his ability to be the quarterback that he thinks, and that we kind of know what it can be, because you have to admit the 2020 season that Baker Mayfield had was a really good season, and that injury held him back. But with that injury holding him back, that kind of gave the Browns a little bit of leverage and being like, hey, we got to upgrade. And then that's when Deshaun Watson became available, and then that's how they were able to upgrade at the quarterback position over Baker Mayfield. That injury situation was very, very unfortunate, but I think for Baker's sake, if he would have shut it down for the season right when it happened, because it wasn't if it was truly an injury that was hindering him that bad, I don't think he should have been playing throughout the season. You can't deny his competitive toughness, but you can't just sit there and play through an injury like that, because then you're going to get somebody like me, who I truly believe when I'm saying this is that if you're going to play on an injury like that, you can't expect people to feel bad for you because of the injury, and you can't be defended because of that injury, because you had chances to fix it and get better, and you decided to continue to play through it. Not going to question the toughness, because I don't think I could ever do that, but then you also have to understand that people aren't going to necessarily feel bad for you whenever you are continuing to play through that injury, when they know that you can get help and make yourself better. But then the last point I have is the way that Baker Mayfield went about where he thought he would land up whenever the Browns finally did acquire Deshaun Watson. On that same podcast, as I mentioned earlier in the video, he said that he could see himself ending up in Indianapolis. And I don't really think that's really that good of a look for Baker Mayfield, in my opinion, being like, hey, I think I would have looked good and ended up in that spot, because that's not the way the NFL works. And it just kind of comes off as Baker being like, that's where I wanted to go. That's where I deserve to go. That's where I want to go. Like it comes off as Baker kind of complaining a little bit, or not necessarily complaining, I can't think of the right word, but it just comes off as Baker Mayfield coming off a little bit needy based off the situation, which again, in a way, he kind of felt disrespected. So I could see why he was like, hey, I want to go to the Colts. That's where I want to go because of what you guys done to me. But at the same time, that's not where the NFL works. And I don't think airing your grievances the way that he's done this offseason is really helping anybody in this situation. But at the end of the day, it's a really tough question if Baker Mayfield is being disrespected, because from the player aspect, you can kind of see it. From the NFL business side of it, well, at the end of the day, it's a business. It really sucks, but that's just how it works. But I really do hope that Baker Mayfield lands on his feet. I think he deserves another chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's good. He's good for the sport, good or bad. People are talking about him. And if people are talking about you, that's usually a good thing. And it depends on the bad news that you're bringing. I mean, the bad news that Baker's bringing is nothing compared to what some people bring to the NFL. People are just talking about him when it comes to a football standpoint, which is usually a good thing for a player, because people are talking about him. And I think Baker Mayfield honestly is good for the NFL. So wherever he does land, I hope he lands on his feet, and I hope his career continues to be successful, and I hope it continues to get better. But those are my thoughts on the Baker Mayfield situation with the Cleveland Browns. Give me your thoughts down below if you think Baker Mayfield is being disrespected, and I'll see you in the next one.